Alright everyone, we start off today talking about something that I predicted within polling, and that was a bounce for Joe Biden in general polling. Not an insignificant one. It's about 3-4 points as far as the gap goes. So half of that's approval, roughly half of it's disapproval. I think the drop in disapproval is more telling and also bigger, slightly. We've seen more movement in that with Joe Biden for the first year of his asterisk administration. Well, year and a couple months now. We've seen more movement in disapproval at times than approval. That is more steady, and the curvature, if you're looking at the aggregate, is more gentle. With disapproval, it's like randomly goes up 10 points, randomly drops like a rock, etc. Now, again, I predicted this would happen. It was initially ascribed to the State of the Union, but it has little to do with that. It has to do with the response to Ukraine. What Joe Biden is attempting to do is convert himself into a wartime president for the purposes of the midterms by getting involved in a conflict that really doesn't directly involve the U.S. at all. Initially, the French took the fore on negotiating. Germany has taken the lead mainly economically, with exception of everything other than the U.S. deciding to stop Russian oil imports, which will, by the way, play a huge role in why I don't think this bounce will last very long. Think what you will about the actual fighting or whatever. It is not directly the United States fight. This involves the Russians fighting a non-NATO state. You can sell them all the weapons you want, give them planes, etc., etc., and what Biden is hoping for is to stall out the Russians, either forcing a hardline negotiation with the Ukrainians say, look, haha, you can't conquer us, you can keep the land that you've got, or we can negotiate and we can end this fucking shit because your entire economy has been wrecked. He's hoping for either that, or for a situation where the Ukrainians actually manage to gain enough victories to drive the Russians out, or at least to the eastern provinces, which would feature in the negotiations. If that happens, Biden looks good, because the fact that he pretended that the U.S. was directly involved beyond the sanction and weapons sales, things that we do anyway all the time to various countries, it'll look good for him, because he'll be able to say, well, we played an integral role in stopping big bully Vladimir Putin and saving thousands of Ukrainian children, which is exactly what he would do. That would probably help him more long term. The problem is there's no legitimate reason, despite the fact that Russia's advance has apparently been slowed to a crawl in several areas. They still haven't taken Kiev, for example, which was clearly by now his intent. After he had to invade in the first place, I think he would have liked to have taken it in the first 3 days. It's gotten quite past that by now. There's no reason to believe that Russia will lose in the standard sense. The Ukrainians simply don't have as much manpower. Although, you do have to realize that there are conscripts now fighting for Russia. That doesn't look great when you're not just sending volunteers. When you have to start conscripting people who are in the third world style slums of the south of your country to go and fight, people without skin in the game, it's not necessarily the greatest show of Russian strength in the military sense, but they've got the upper hand. At any given time, Zelensky could get bullseyed by a Russian missile, demoralizing their forces. It's probably just a matter of time before something breaks down. Biden is simply hoping that his hardline response with the oil and the sanctions will allow him to take credit if that happens. If it doesn't, if Russia continues, if they win, if they force regime change, if the eastern provinces clearly break off, if the negotiations end with Zelensky admitting Crimea is Russian, any of these things, this won't help. What happened as far as the bounce goes is converting himself into a quasi-wartime president. Again, though, the oil will play a role. The problem is the economy's stupid. The response to Ukraine has been a disaster already for the U.S. economy. We're about to get new inflation numbers. They will be excessive. They will be higher than last month. They will be higher than normal. They will be higher than initially anticipated in that month-on-month growth at the beginning of the month by economists. All of these things are basically certain. And that's pre-war inflation data. Biden is going to come out later, potentially, or Psaki, and address it. They'll be asked questions. They will blame it on Russia sanctions, even though the month did not begin with an invasion of Ukraine. From here on out, Biden is using this as a cloak to try to convince people, I know you're suffering, but it's not my fault. The problem is this, and this is why the bounce, I don't think, will be much larger than it currently is. It'll stabilize and then start slowly going back in the other direction. It's the economy, stupid. First, a lot of people believe that Ukraine wouldn't have been invaded at all if Biden weren't the one in there. I happen to concur with that assessment. I think that Trump clearly knew what he was doing. Biden clearly doesn't. Secondly, over time, people have become, I think, a little bit numb to the deflection game of the Biden asterisk administration. Everything is always some external force's fault. They're doing a double blame, by the way, with the economy. Have you noticed this? It's not just Russia, Russia, Russia. It's also the corporations are price gouging people. They A/B tested this message several months ago, by the way, and it doesn't work. The problem is that's basically an admission of you've retreated to your core. That message will only work with liberal individuals. It's not going to work with any independents that were aboard. So you're just trying to defend your core fan base. The problem is the core fan base is smaller than the current numbers. That's because he has a lack of enthusiasm in party, and he's not particularly greatly liked by the far left. His particular core is probably not even much more than a simple majority of Democrats, let alone a significantly smaller minority of left-leaning independent individuals that just happen to generally vote Dem because of their leanings. I think that the Biden bounce will be reabsorbed within 3 months, long before midterms, by the way. And he'll be right back where he is now and then get degraded further. Because the economic damage, regardless of what happens, is going to be severe. The inflation will tick even higher. Prices have already begun to soar out of sight. When he says, well, lower gas prices, and then he inevitably can't because gas prices are only marginally affected by the kind of things he's doing, and he just blocked Russian oil. Yeah, okay, it's only a portion of that 4 or so percent that's imported. I mean, it's 4%, I can't remember the exact measure, of the total oil that's used or something. Yeah, it's a minority. That's true. But a marginal increase in price, let's say 5-10 cents a gallon, at this particular moment is not the time to weather that. The optics of the Biden administration. The other part is really optics and charisma, or rather the lack thereof. Biden is not good at getting his point across. Psaki and all of these others, the energy secretary the other day, are optics poor. They effectively are telling people, let them eat cake. Well, if you had an electric car, this wouldn't be a problem. Yeah, if I had $50,000 extra lying around, then I wouldn't have to reabsorb quite as much of a price hike. Wowie kazowie, wouldn't that be lovely? And by the way, these people now telling you that you need to love Tesla after calling Elon Musk a Nazi for a year, for disagreeing with Beijing Biden multiple times, for kicking Grimes out, for being a Starbucks Marxist, which apparently is basically what happened. The response is going to fuck with the economy. The problem is people have, especially among the United States, you have this false sense, I think, that the administration represents like the country at large. We make this same mistake with other countries. Well, the Russians did X, Y, and Z. No, Putin did. The oligarchs did. The average Russian person was too busy farming cabbages or making bathtub vodka or something. People look at the situation, and it's very monosyllabic, point and grunt, caveman-style propaganda when you really think about it. It's like, Russia, man, bad. We respond, send rock to Ukraine to stop evil Russia, man. If you no like, you hate us, you pro-Russia. And, you know, Biden Gunga, big leader. That's basically what it boils down to. It's like you have to support Biden and his particular response or you're unpatriotic. Right-leaning independents are no fans of Biden, but they don't like to be considered unpatriotic. And it's going to be very funny to see the little wooden gears in all the liberals' heads turn around as they have to justify effectively a pro-war stance. Yes, after warning us of World War III if Trump was elected, it seems to now be on the eve of destruction. It'll be very funny for them to justify how all of a sudden they're pro-war because Biden Unga, Big Unga said so. And basically, he is a caveman mentally. I don't even know that he's quite that sophisticated. This is point and grunt propaganda, effectively. You hate our nation. And I've been called like a Russian propagandist for the last few days by some people for simply pointing out one of several things. Number one, there's propaganda coming from all sides that includes the Ukrainian side in this struggle. Number two, no, having a no-fly zone over Russia is a goddamn terrible idea. Thank goodness Biden's, even he's not that crazy, it seems. Some Republicans are, though. And number three, the situation, while sparked initially by Putin invading, is preceded by a half a decade of bad NATO decision-making that should have been better and involved Biden directly, by the way, as VP at the time Crimea was annexed. He already fucked up once. What makes me think that he's going to magically solve things here, and why wouldn't people effectively punish him for the economy? The problem is people are willing to take one for the team and say, well, I've got to be patriotic. Biden tells me I got to stop the Soviets, so I mean the Russians. I got to stop the evil Nazi Putin, so I have to make do with less bread and I'll pay higher prices. But there's a limit to their patience with such hikes. And the damage is cumulative. Okay, gas prices rose 50 cents per gallon. That stings, but, you know, it's for Ukraine. Think of the children and the maternity wards. But what if it rises another 50 cents? At what point is the strain too much for the person to physically deal with? Then Biden's got a compacting issue. If that happens, remains to be seen whether it will, but all signs point to probably. If you hit that economic tipping point where you either start pumping the economy or you hit a deep recession and joblessness soars and you end up with a great recession sort of situation, which does Biden do? Inflation is already sky high. If you pump the economy, inflation and prices will soar out of sight. You can save the jobs, you can keep the economy afloat, but we've already been doing that on and off now for decades anyway, and we're not currently in a position to do so as easily. At the beginning of the Great Recession, you didn't have unemployment that's about to eclipse 8%. Especially if you use the old measures, it's closer to 20. If you use the 1980s measures of inflation from the last time, prior to the Great Recession, that we had a significant inflationary cycle, our inflation's 20% already. They've managed to insert some funny math in there so that it doesn't sound as bad. The Biden bounce of several points here, I think, will be reabsorbed within 3 months. Barring Russia stalling out completely, apologizing and withdrawing, and Biden strutting around on stage pretending that he was Zelensky and actually did something other than send weapons. Other than that scenario, which is what Biden as a Hail Mary president is praying for right now, this will go down probably as another foreign policy blunder, and it won't resemble any sort of victory. It'll be like mission accomplished. Biden will say, well, the Russians just hit a recession. We've accomplished what we needed to do. And then the Ukrainians will still be dying for the next however many months, maybe years. That's probably what's going to happen. The economy ain't going to get better in that time. That's about all. Peace out.